I titled this Trusting God in a Dark Season. And the way that we're going to make it through a dark season is by trusting Him. So if you find yourself in a dark season, you can take some notes, and I pray that it will help you. So first of all, what do I mean by a dark season? I am speaking of a challenging place in which you are facing various trials that are usually lasting longer than you expect and often cause questions. We may question our faith. We may question God's care. We may question God's presence. We may question God's goodness, whether He's really for me or loves me. It is a disorienting, confusing, frustrating place. You may feel numb. Numb being a place where you're unable to feel anything sometimes because of the pressure, the stress, the pain. You may feel like you're alone or unloved or sad or depressed. These things that I've described does not mean that I've walked away from God or left Him, or my relationship with Him has changed, or I'm no longer a Christian. All of these are a part of the walk in our human life. Some have called it a winter season, or even the term you may have heard is a dark night or the dark night of the soul. Biblically, we see this happening with several of the writers in the Bible, or the stories that are told of their lives in the Bible. David, for example, in Psalm chapter 6, verses 6 through 7, says, I'm worn out with grief. Every night my bed is damp with my weeping. My pillow is soaked with tears. I can hardly see. My eyes are so swollen from the weeping caused by my enemies. This is a man that is able to be honest before God about how he's feeling. He doesn't feel like this is King David. This is David, the one that slew Goliath, now speaking about a challenging season, place that he was going through that caused him, we would say, well, he does say in this version of Psalm chapter 6 that his pillow is soaked with tears. Have you ever cried yourself to sleep, or cried in the bed to where you just had to change the pillow or flip it over or change the pillowcase? This is the type of sorrow that David is describing. Job, in Job chapter 30, we know the horrors that Job faced. And he didn't have the benefit of seeing what was going on in the heavenly realm where God is, and how God had purposed this. He didn't have that full sight. So in the midst of losing all that he lost, he cries out in Job chapter 30, verse 16, and says, and now my life seeps away, depression haunts my days. At night my bones are filled with pain, which gnaws at me relentlessly. With a strong hand, God grabs my shirt. He grips me by the collar of my coat. He has thrown me into the mud. I'm nothing more than dust and ashes. That's Job chapter 30, verses 16 through 19. Elijah, the great prophet in the book of Kings, 1 Kings, who did great exploits, killed hundreds of the prophets that were serving another god with the jawbone of an ass, goes out after that great victory. In 1 Kings 19, verse 4, it says, then he went on alone into the wilderness, traveling all day. He sat under a solitary broom tree and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors who have died. I'm not quoting these things to depress you. I'm quoting them because I like us to realize whenever we find ourselves in this place that it's not outside of the human experience and outside of something that God hasn't validated by adding it into His scripture to say, I know the whole of the human experience. So have you been there? Are you there now? do you know what I'm talking about when I speak of a dark season? I believe that I am traveling through a dark season now. And from this place, I want to give us some encouragement from God. The place where I am now, where I don't have a clear view of what's before me, how it will work out. It seems as though many things are moving and transitioning, and the things that I used to consider stable, not so much. And so that's the place that I want to talk from. First, some advice. It's hard to see in the dark. If you find yourself in a dark season, it's hard to see rightly. It's easy to misinterpret people, yourself, God, because the pain and challenges is disorienting and can be blinding. In this place where it's hard to see in the dark, you can't lean on your own understanding. You can't my advice is not to make decisions without godly counsel, because it's too dark in my own eyesight, in my own mind. Be sure to have godly people around praying for us and providing a safe space for us to vent. And a part of what we do when we gather is to provide that place. This, in the throne room, I consider our community. It's mostly virtual, but we are real women walking through real life experiences, and so this is a place to be around godly counsel and to be in a place where you can hear the things of God and be encouraged by the other women and know that people are praying for you. So it's hard to see in the dark. Keep good community around you. Don't lean to your own understanding. Don't make decisions without godly counsel. And for those of us that know that we need something more, it's all right, and it's good, in fact. And I encourage us to reach out for professional help, a therapist, a doctor, when it seems as though the darkness is becoming so dark or all-encompassing, and really the thought pattern is very negative. Having a therapist, especially a godly Christian therapist, makes a wonderful difference. For me, I have been in professional therapy in various seasons of my life over decades. I've always found it to be making a wonderful difference, providing a relief valve and a place of healing so that I feel like I can go on. Sometimes we need more than just the praying friends that we have around us. We need more than just a church service. We actually need a professional that can understand patterns and help us break apart things, and also provide a safe place for us to dialogue and to really get out the things that we need to get out. So if you need recommendations for a therapist or how to connect with a therapist or what that relationship is like or what you should be looking for, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk with you about that. The other advice in a dark season, besides it's hard to see in the dark, is because it is hard to see in the dark, the circumstances are not going to offer hope. So I can't rely on the circumstances, what happens during the day, what doesn't happen. If I'm leaning on that, I'll find that I'm moving with that. If the circumstance seems to be good, then I'm rejoicing. If it's not so good, then I'm depressed. But that is not the thing that allows for stability. So I can't look to the circumstance. The circumstance may not change, but there can be a change in me. The other thing about a dark season is that I want to encourage us to know that it is a season, meaning that it's temporary, as every season, winter, spring, summer, fall, they all have their time to come, and then they all have their time that they must go to make room for the next season. Even though it may seem to be getting tougher in the season that you're in, remember that it's always darkest just before dawn. Just before, if you've ever been up late and saw the sun come up, you would if you could find that point where it starts to change, it's always going to be darkest right at that point where the light begins to shine. And our God sees as well in the dark as he does in the light. He hasn't changed because of the dark season. So you can be sure that he sees you and he loves you, and he's using even this season for good. It doesn't feel good. We prefer not to be going through it, but he's promised that all things work together for our good. So it has to be true. All right, that's some advice about a dark season. It's hard to see in the dark. We can't rely on the circumstances to give us hope, and this season is temporary.